Okay, it's rolling. The director says, action. Okay, so I'm gonna go through trimming, the final trim assemble, and I call it assembly. You'll see why in a minute. So these pieces, I'd already packed them to put them in the freezer, and I hadn't done that yet, and that worked out. So they haven't been brined. That doesn't change what we're about to do. As you can see, when I put them away, they already looked pretty well done, except, you know, there's like here we have stuff hanging off all over. The way that I assemble a piece is, first of all, when you take it out of the brine, use a paper towel, dry the top off really well, dry the skin off really well, maybe lay it down and rub it out to dry. You want that really dry. What I find is that when you do this next step, where you put the skin on the meat, and then you reach around all the sides, pull any skin that might have curled up, because the skin sometimes will curl up in there. And you pull it all down, and maybe pull it sideways to even it up, so that you have about the same to work on either side. That's not bad. The skin will shrink up a little while it's cooking, but not too much. So you don't want to be too aggressive, but you do want to cut. And these shears are getting old. I need to get some new ones. They still work. They're still good, but I need to get some new ones. If you find any little bits of feather or anything, like there was a little bit of spooge right there, like a feather, I just kind of pulled it out. Okay, so as you're doing this, you're pulling the skin tight down against the meat. And remember, it's dry underneath there, relatively dry. Just a little bit of moisture, residual moisture. And then we cut around the skirt, and we see we have some meat hanging off there, so we're gonna cut that off too. And right here, remember, cut it, don't yank it. I'm sure you know all this. I'm just going over the details. And again there, just anything that's really drippy, hangy, you want to cut that. And again over here, we're going to do the same thing. And just be careful on the corners not to get too enthusiastic and start cutting up. You don't really want to cut up. There we go. We've cleared the piece off pretty well around the skirt. Pulled this skin is like nice and smooth down. If you look at the skin, you can see the color of the meat through some of the skin. So that indicates there's no air bubbles underneath there. And air bubbles, I believe, very important to avoid air bubbles here. Okay, so that piece is now, as far as I'm concerned, close enough to done. Okay, so same process on this piece. Let's run through 4 of them here, because that actually works out really well. Okay, so I'm going around here. Okay, again, there's a skirt, and you see how there's like a little bit of, like the spooge will be hanging like fat, subcutaneous fat, I guess is the proper term for that. Will be hanging off. Again, go around, being careful not to cut up too much. You want to stay level with the base of the meat. With some experience, you'll get, like tomorrow with your test cook, you're going to get a better idea what cutting techniques work, you know, how well they work and what the results are. Earlier today I had a trash can underneath the camera. I don't have it there now, so because the camera fits better. So I'm not going to be throwing stuff underneath the camera like I was this morning. And let's finish cutting that off. Again, the skirt over here on the thin end of the thigh where the skin is well attached, still need to do some trimming. And again, use a scissors. You can use a knife if you need to, but at this point in the final trim, most of what you're doing will require nothing more than scissors. If you're getting a knife, I mean, I have a knife ready. I don't expect I'm going to pick that knife up before I'm done trimming. It's if you find a hunk of meat that's really hanging on or something out of the ordinary. But at this point, okay, when we cook the pieces, they're going to be bunched up like that, and we're gonna smooth the skin down. So sometimes what I'll do is come in here and just like get a little snip to try to maybe help the skin fold up a little. Maybe just take out a little tiny little nip of skin there, but that piece is pretty good, so let's put it over here. Okay, this is a larger piece, if you notice, than these other two. So probably one of the earlier ones I trimmed. These are actually closer to the right size, and you can see the difference in size here. Okay, this one's a little on the large side. If I were trimming right now, even after brining, I might be tempted to, in fact, let's see how well that works. Let's see if I don't cut myself tonight. Let's try to avoid going to the ER. I'm going to come in here and start by cutting. You know, one thing I have to mention is always start by cutting the skin. You don't want to just chop in. Even when you get to the bone, you're going to want to give it the good sharp push through the bone. Sometimes crack the bone and then wiggle the knife a little to emphasize that crack to increase it. So this is going to be a rather large piece just to start with, and even though I'm making it more narrow, still a lot of chicken over here. So I guess what I need to do to help compensate for that is take a little more of this side off. If the people bite into the bone, they'll turn it around and take a bite over here, which is actually, I think, what we really want them to do. Okay, so I just adjusted the size of that piece rather dramatically. And you could do that post-brine. It's completely okay. My suggestion is when you're assembling the pieces, triage. If you find a piece like that you're like, oh, he's not too pretty, that one's too big, you know, I want to work on that one some more. Set it aside and finish assembling the rest of your pieces. See, get all the easy stuff done or all the regular stuff done first, and come back. And unlike what I just did, which was like interrupt my assembling process to fix the piece, I would just suggest setting it aside, come back to it at the end. Remember, you only got to turn in 8 pieces. And if you start with a whole cryo, you're going to have more than 16. So you're going to have enough. You're going to have a couple that you don't cook or that don't go in the pans, because the pans hold 8 each. Okay, so this piece is still not that pretty. I don't, I guess I could, again, I would say come back to that one. Actually, because the skin's really well attached there, you can probably be kind of aggressive in coming in underneath with the shears and taking some meat out of there. I don't know. Anyway, like I say, if you get a freak like that, save it for the very end. Well, okay, I'm already knee-deep in this one. Let's try this. A knife would work better for this, but yeah, I'm not. Again, don't get caught up on this tomorrow or contest, but yeah, okay. So that guy's kind of a freak. Still larger than the others, and that's not gonna be that consistent even after it cooks. Okay, and of course I'm trimming here, and my trimmings are just right here. Normally I would have a little more room. I wouldn't be constrained by the camera, and I keep the trimmings out of the way because I don't want to have them sticking to the piece and then getting cooked, and then when I take it out of the cooker, having a big blonde spot in the skin because there was a piece of skin stuck to it when it started cooking, and that came off, So anyway, this piece is maybe a little on the small side, but perfectly okay. And again, I got that hanger right there, so we're gonna take it off nice and straight. One thing with the scissors, you'll notice I snip and I rotate as I go. If you try to go like that, it's just going to bunch it and push it forward. So I try to go here and just cut a little at a time. You probably know that. Just want to make sure to share that technique. Okay, so now I have these 4 pieces that are trimmed up close enough. Let's just double check them here in a second. Let's double check them. Not that pretty, but believe it or not, you notice how you can see the pink of the chicken meat through there. Man, when they go in the pan, they're all going to end up kind of like this. So you try to look at it like that, and when you do that, you think, oh, maybe I need to take some of that meat off right there. That meat right there, I think, is kind of bulbous. Take that off, smooth the skin back down. There's a little bit more there. There we go. Smooth the skin back down. And once it cooks, a lot of stuff happens. It'll tighten up. Okay, so that's a bit on the small side. That's actually probably, which is not bad. This guy's really close, actually. This guy's a little larger, but still pretty close. They'll cook to a very similar size. Just need to make sure his skin is doing well there, because the skin's not perfectly even there, but that's fine. This one's a little large. I kept working on him. I'm not going to work on him anymore. Okay, the trick now, you're going to put these in a pan, and you're going to have them just barely fitting in the pan, and they're all going to be in a row like this on one side of the pan. Well, if you try to season them in the pan, the seasoning will not get between the pieces. So what I do to season is I lay them out nice and flat, and I do this for 8 pieces at a time. And I'm going to pause